It's Jonathan Yates with the Culture of Sports. Welcome to Mount St. Joseph High School in Baltimore, Maryland. We're here today to interview Kraig Loovis, the athletic director. Mr. Loovis, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, Jonathan, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
This is part of our AD Presents series where we go to a local high school to find out about the sport that they're best known for in the state of Maryland. But with St. Joe, it's sort of everyone. I'd ordinarily say wrestling, but it's March Madness, and you have quite a few players playing college hoops as we speak.
Appreciate that. Yes, it's been a very exciting month for us. Just behind you, we have 3 Baltimore Catholic League championships. So in 2012, 13, and 14, we had a three-peat, and some of the star players from those 3 teams, Jalen Adams is with St. Bonaventure. They just had a big upset win over UCLA. Cam Williams with Ohio State. He's with Ohio State Buckeyes. They won last night. I think Cam had about 22 points for the Buckeyes. And Phil Booth with Villanova. Those guys won 3 high school championships when they were here. And Phil won a national title with Villanova. And he's trying to make it a second national title. So we're all excited about those guys.
So speaking of Villanova, why don't you introduce the 2 young gentlemen you have with you?
Sure, I'd like to introduce Michael Corby. Michael is an outstanding football player, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. He's our scholar athlete. He's our National Football Foundation scholar athlete nominee for Mount St. Joseph. He's headed to Villanova next year. He also plays rugby and track and field. And then next to him is Chris Barnaby. Chris is only a sophomore, but he's a rising star on the wrestling mat. This year he had 38 pins out of 46 wins. He was a runner-up at states and finished 3rd at the national preps. And Chris is certainly getting a lot of attention from college coaches.
I was going to say 3rd at the nationals. Chris, you're not a rising star. You are a star. So in terms of the stars who are playing, this is sort of a Sophie's choice. Who are you rooting for here at Mount St. Joe in the NCAA tournaments?
We're just rooting for all our guys to do well. We're really proud of them. It's great for school spirit. You know, the current group of guys, the current players, tune in and watch them, and you know, it's fun.
You know, speaking of the current players, Jalen Smith's the top recruit for University of Maryland. What's he like?
Jalen is a gentleman. He's certainly a fantastic talent, but a really humble young man. Funny about Jalen, after any basketball game here in the Smith Center, no matter how many points he scored, he could score 30, 40 points, have, you know, a triple-double. And after the boys shake hands with the other team, he's the first boy that's going to start stacking chairs and helping me clean up the sideline. He's just a really humble young man, great family. We're proud of his accomplishments and excited to watch him move on to the next level.
Now, when I was here earlier this week, I saw him playing in the gym, and he looked to be having a great time. Does he seem to be very popular with the other students?
Oh, he's very popular. Never gets in trouble. He's kind of a model student for us. Quiet, unassuming, humble kid, and then on the court, just plays hard and competes.
Now, when you speak of, you know, the model student, it looks like St. Joe put the scholar and scholar athlete. I was looking at the background. You seem to have almost the same number of National Merit Scholarship winners here as you do Division I athletes, which is remarkable.
Well, we appreciate that. You know, we believe firmly that high school sports is about education, and what happens on the academic side of campus in the classroom transfers over to here. Mount St. Joe has been in this very spot for 150 years. And so the Zavarian brothers founded this school 150 years ago. They believe in educating the whole student, and part of that is athletics. And so we compete hard, and we want our teams, obviously, to be successful, but it's about how we do it, how we compete, how we represent the school. And we feel that is educationally valuable.
And how important is community service to the whole Mount St. Joe experience?
Well, we encourage all of our teams to get involved in the community. The boys are going to be doing that in their classes on the academic side of campus, but a lot of our teams are involved in the community, helping out, whether it's Little League teams, cleaning up area baseball diamonds, getting involved in many ways, whether it be 5K races and things like that. So a lot of our teams are doing those types of activities.
So Mike, can you tell us what was the most rewarding community experience you had here in terms of service?
Well, for our junior year, we need 40 hours of service. So I did my service at, it's called We Rock, the Spectrum Kids Gym. It's down in the Spring Park near Early Heights. And it's like almost like hard to explain. It's more of a fun place, kind of like a roly-polies for like kids with, some of them have like mental
Sure.
like problems. So it's fun to just hang around with the kids, and they're like, the smallest things were like so exciting for them. Like you'd pop a balloon and they would be rolling on the floor laughing for about 10 minutes, and it's great to be part of.
So Chris, what's been your most rewarding community service experience since you've been here?
Well, last year I went with my classmates to Our Daily Bread, where we passed out meals, gave tea to everyone, and a lot of them weren't able to have been like starving for days, and just to have them say a simple thank you really means a lot to me.
So did it make you feel even happier to be here at St. Joe?
Yes, it does.
Now, when students come here to look at St. Joe, there's a lot of great schools in this area. You know, Gilman's great, McDonough's great. What do you think sells them on coming to St. Joe?
Many things. Obviously, we're the only Xaverian school in the Baltimore area. We've been in this spot, as I said, for 150 years. A lot of our boys, their fathers went here, their grandfathers went here, or even great-grandfathers. So for many students, it's a legacy. It's a Catholic education, and it's all male. And so even though there are quite a few private schools in the area, we feel that we set ourselves apart and we are unique to all the others.
So Mike, have you enjoyed being at the all-male experience here? Do you feel that's helped your development as a scholar athlete?
100%.
Same.
So Chris, your father wrestled here when I was back wrestling in high school, and some things never change. I remember the Christmas tournament when St. Joe was there when I was in high school. It looked like the Mount St. Joe Invitational when it came to the, and then a friend of mine's son was wrestling this year. It looked like the Mount St. Joe Invitational again. How important has that tradition been to you as a wrestler?
I feel like it's very important since both my uncle and my dad have wrestled, and my dad's very well known as being not just a head coach, but basically knowing everyone here.
So how about you?
Uh,
Have you found the whole experience here in athletics to be sort of help you achieve your scholar athlete
Oh,
status?
absolutely. I know last year the coaches and the teachers, they don't clash heads when it comes to the student. I know last year I had AP chemistry labs once a week after school for an hour, and I'd have to come late every day, and Coach Holzer didn't even question. Like, they work together and they know what comes first, and they don't question it.
Now, you were recruited by some great schools. You know, you're going to Villanova. That's one of the best schools out there. When the coaches would recruit you, did they sort of say, well, you know, he's going to Mount St. Joseph, so we know the academic box has been checked?
They know the academic box has been checked, and they also know, like, even if you have a grade that's not as high, they know that the grading scale here is harder and the classes themselves are hard, so they give respect to the name of St. Joe when they see our grades.
And Mr. Loovis, have you found that to be the example with all the other sports too? I mean, obviously he was one of your prized student athletes this year, but do you see it for all the recruiting?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think when college coaches visit Mount St. Joe and they speak with our head coaches and they're recruiting our young men, they know that they're going to get a young man that is prepared to be a college student athlete, not just athletically, but in the classroom, he's prepared. He understands a team philosophy. He understands his role on a team, hard work, discipline. And so for all of those reasons, I think they come to Mount St. Joe and they like the product that they receive.
So, Mike, you impressed me as being a modest young man, so I'm going to ask Mr. Loovis to brag about his academic awards that he won.
Well, he's our nominee, as I said, for the National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete. Mike gets it done in the classroom. There's no question. We want all of our boys to challenge themselves. in and out of the classroom. Mike has done that with all of the AP classes, the high-level classes, the academic rigor, and then he's worked extremely hard on the field as well, in the weight room, preparing all the demands of being a student athlete. So yeah, we're very proud of him, and we think he is, top notch as far as student athletes go.
Now, when I interviewed Delegate Robert Flanagan, who had played football at Harvard, he went to Gonzaga, and I asked him, was there that much of a difference in playing football at Gonzaga and playing football in the Ivy League? And he said, no, not that much of a difference at all. He said the level of sports in this area is so high. Mike, do you expect to see the same thing when you get up there?
I mean, every week in, week out, we play top competition in the country. We played, I believe it was 4 ESPN top 300 players just this season alone. And I think if we can do well against there, show working hard, you can show yourself in college too.
And Chris, did you feel the same way wrestling in the Nationals? Did you think that you were as good as anyone else? Clearly you were.
Yes, I do.
So this is where you all are going to have to throw away your modesty here on this question. One of the basic premises of this show is that Maryland has the best high school sports in the country. As I was telling Mr. Loovis, I don't think there's any high school in America that could hope to go up and down the Baltimore-Washington Parkway and survive. You've got St. Joe, Poly, Gilman, Dunbar up here, down south. You've got DeMatha, Roosevelt. But yet, when you think of sports, you never think of Maryland as being the best. You hear Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Let's start with you. Why do you think that is, Mr. Lewis? Why doesn't Maryland get its due?
I'm not quite too sure. I think this Baltimore metro area, I know they call it the DMV is the term they use now, has produced lots of fine athletes in the college ranks, some that have even gone on to pro careers.
Prince George's County produces more professional players for the NBA and NFL than anywhere else in the world.
I think that's terrific. As a high school athletic director, my focus is on these young men and our coaches, and not just our success on the field, but how we do it. Is it educational? Is it a positive experience? Are we doing all the things that we say we're going to do with the mission of the school? So as far as bragging rights, I would put our guys up against anyone. But again, at the end of the day, it's how we do it, how we represent the school. If the alumni are proud of Mount St. Joe, the accomplishments on and off the field, and I think very much so they are.
And when you speak of alumni, what are some of the big names that have come out of Mount St. Joe and gone on to greatness in sports?
Well, certainly Mark Teixeira is the first that comes to mind. But just as of late, Pete Solomon is a baseball player that
now Teixeira was the first baseman for the Yankees, correct?
That's sure. Okay, he was the first baseman for the Yankees.
And Pete Solomon,
Pete Solomon just finished up at Notre Dame, and he's coming up through the Astros organization.
Was that any surprise? I mean, watching him play here?
No, that was no surprise whatsoever. If you watched him pitch in high school, you knew he was special. And we think he could be the next Mount St. Joe student athlete to make its way to the major leagues.
And I was reading you had a swimmer win a gold medal in the Olympics?
We have Tommy Hannon was in the Sydney Olympics, went to the University of Texas, and then swam in the relays in the Sydney Olympics. So, yeah, I mean, we're certainly proud of those types of accomplishments. If you walk up and down our hallways, you see the Hall of Fame banners and the names.
Behind me.
And
everywhere we look.
Yeah, there's been some terrific accomplishments.
What is this trophy all about?
So,
right here to my right.
Well, that's our MIAA wrestling trophy, the Lehigh Cup. So we've had that the last 2 years.
I was going to say, it just kind of found a home here.
It's found a home here. It takes visits other places. However, it's been here the last 2 years, but we're proud to say we've been state champions for the last 2 years. And I don't think any other high school has won 11 national prep team championships, which Mount St. Joe has done. So, that doesn't happen overnight, obviously. No. That kind of tradition has been going on for decades.
How did the excellence in wrestling get started at Mount St. Joe? Because when you think about it, Baltimore is a basketball area, not wrestling. So how did Mount St. Joe build such a peerless wrestling program?
Countless individuals, great coaches, hard work, supportive administration. I think anyone can have a good team anyone can have a good team in a given year. You have a couple good players and you can have a great season. But I think with our wrestling program, our basketball program, it starts at the top with our coaches, our head coaches, Harry Barnaby and Coach Pat Clatchy, and what they've been able to do year in and year out and sustain the type of excellence that they have is kind of unique, especially in today's sort of sport world. They work really, really hard, of course, with our student athletes. They find the right kind of student athlete that fits with their program. Terrific alumni support. I mean, we're sitting in this beautiful facility, the Smith Center, and Vinny Smith is a wrestling alum from Mount St. Joe. He was a wrestler, and he donated the largest sum of money, the largest one single gift that Mount St. Joseph High School has ever received, which made this beautiful facility a reality. And he was one of those guys in that wrestling room, years and years ago, that left his mark, and they're proud of the legacy that they've left, and they give back. A few years ago, our basketball team had the opportunity to play in a holiday tournament in Hawaii, and we certainly wanted to take advantage of that opportunity. But obviously, how are we going to afford that? How, as a high school, how are we going to afford to send our team to Hawaii? And so we had some help from Nike Basketball, and the parents had to contribute, and we were selling concessions, and we were doing all the things that every high school does to try to afford something as unique an opportunity as that. But Coach Clatchy was able to reach out to some Mount St. Joe basketball alums, guys that are playing professionally overseas in Europe and different places. And he reached out to those guys. He has those relationships with those alums and say, hey, this is what our current team has a chance to do. Would you be willing to help? And those guys made donations and contributions. They sent checks to Mount St. Joe so that the team would have that opportunity, which is pretty neat. So we have that alumni support where they're watching our teams. So they're alums, but they're watching. We're streaming our games, and they're overseas playing professional ball, watching our games, watching the new group of Gales come through, and they're giving back, and they want to see that success continue.
Does the development office find it easier to raise money since you're so strong in athletics?
I would hope it helps. It certainly is not gonna hurt, but. The school obviously has lots of needs and priorities, and our alums are extremely generous. In addition to this building, we've had lots of renovations to our baseball facility as of late. So there's people that recognize, I guess, the competitiveness of the high school environment and the many options that families have, and so. Yes, our teams are successful, and yes, it's a top-notch education, but we want to have a nice facility for the boys as well.
So, Chris, in terms of the tradition here, how old were you when you first heard about Mount St. Joe wrestling?
Since I was 5,
Really?
very, very young age.
Well, so what I'd like to hear more about is your basketball players who are playing overseas. That's very unique.
It's terrific. We've had some guys reach the NBA. Henry Sims played at Georgetown and reached the NBA. But it can be very difficult, obviously, to stay at that level. And it's a great opportunity to play professional ball overseas in Europe. We've had probably a dozen guys over the last 10 or 15 years that have had fantastic careers playing overseas. Some of them have met their wives over there, and when they retire, they come back home. And we see those guys a lot in the summertime because of the way their season is laid out.
They still come back to St. Joe.
They come back to St. Joe, and they work out in our gym in the summertime, and they'll even give pointers to our present players.
Does that help in recruiting?
I suppose it does.
And do any of them ever come back and say, Mr. Loovis, I hated the all-male atmosphere when I was here. I hated having to take chemistry, but now I realize how good it was for me as a total individual.
I don't know if those ball players are, using all that chemistry, but they certainly recognize that it was well worth it. When they look back, they recognize that the experience was special. you know, I often get photos from guys, alums at their weddings and things like that, and it's a wedding
They're wearing
party.
purple, no doubt.
They're wearing their purple, and it's a
That's-
wedding party. All these groomsmen of all these St. Joe guys. So it's pretty neat.
One thing I was very impressed by in one of your tweets this week about March Madness is you said, "Bring back your degree." You did. So does the St. Joe emphasis on academics even continue with them when they're in college?
Of course, they're. You know, nowadays we see so many young men and women, student athletes, that choose an institution and transfer to another and transfer to another, and it's tough. But I think young people need to understand that you're going to a school for academics, and when you're at Mount St. Joe, it's emphasized that the academics come first. And so when they get to college, if they're fortunate enough to continue their sport in college, then they're going to understand that the academics comes first. They're going to have chosen a school where they're a good fit, and they're primed to have success.
And do you feel that the religious aspects of St. Joe helps develop the total student athlete too?
Oh, of course, that's part of our mission. You know, there's an award that's given every year. It's reserved for our graduation. It's called the Brother Eugene Lyons Award, and it goes to Mount St. Joseph's outstanding gentleman, scholar, and athlete. It's one of the highest honors that a Mount St. Joseph graduate can receive. And so that's what we're emphasizing, that total development of a young man. Not just can he score a lot of points, but is he prepared? Is he a gentleman?
So, Mike, how important do you feel that that's been to you over your career here at St. Joe?
Academics have always been one of my top priority. I like to challenge myself in the classroom. I take 5 APs senior year.
What are you looking to do in college as a major?
I am majoring in mechanical engineering with a minor in biomedical engineering
That's very
and
impressive.
a minor in Italian.
And what do you hope to do with that?
I hope to use it with my love for sports to make football helmets, in-game braces, prosthetics for amputees, and make life easier for them.
Have you looked at anything like that? Have you checked out the field to see what's out there? Obviously, Under Armour's not that far away. They do great things in that area.
I mean, Under Armour would be great. I know Villanova is currently doing some research on the mechanics of skiing, and I'd love to get on some of that research to go do some research in the mountains.
So, Chris, how important do you think that's been to the success of your father and your brothers, the whole emphasis on not only academics and athletics, but the total development of a young gentleman here at St. Joe?
Well, I think it's very important because we have to show that we are Mount men on and off the mat.
Are you able to turn that off when you're on the mat?
Yes, I am.
And do you feel, I was listening to them talking about wrestling driving over here, and they were talking about excellence in execution. Do you hear that very often?
Yes, I do.
What exactly does that mean to you as a wrestler?
Well, we have to give it everything we have. We have to work just as hard as for academics as we do with athletics.
And Mike, have you found that to be the same way in football?
Absolutely.
And so, Mr. Loovis, in terms of the students who don't play sports here, are they still as motivated to come and watch the team and cheer it on? I was here for the John Carroll game. They were hanging from the rafters for that, and the school spirit was very obvious.
Yeah, as the athletic director, I think school spirit is hugely important. That sense of pride in your institution, whether you're on the court playing in the game, whether you are a member of the band that's creating that atmosphere and getting everyone pumped up, whether you're a student in the stands cheering on your teammates and cheering for your school. It creates such a sense of pride. I think football, maybe it's fair or unfair, I think football kind of sets the tone usually for the type of school spirit that we're going to have.
Certainly in college it does.
Because you're right out of the gates in September, and if the football team does well, the whole student body is excited, and you can feel it in the hallways, just walking around campus. So yeah, that's big for me. We want all of our teams to have success, but we want that support throughout the whole student body. And so one thing that our coaches will do is you'll have the hockey coach bring his team to the soccer game, or vice versa, so that we're encouraging each other and supporting one another, because there's that mutual respect that the kids have for each other, the different sports.
So Mike, as a football player, did you feel that way, that you were sort of setting the tone for the school for the year, both academically and athletically?
I definitely felt it. I know junior year we played at Spalding, so it was an away game, and we filled bleachers top to bottom, and like a whole third of the section, they traveled with us, cheered just as loud as it was a home game.
So Chris, you're a great wrestler. Your father was a great wrestler. How important is that playing into the whole team spirit thing? I mean, wrestling, when you look at it, is very much an individual sport.
Well, it is most of the time, but at tournaments like MIAAs, we really have to come as a team and work for those bonus points, stuff like that.
Has there been any lessons you've learned from your father that you recognize in sort of the whole spirit of St. Joe?
Yes. So I will say that, yes, it is an individual sport, but you also have to pull everyone else with you.
So what was the college recruiting process like for you, Mike? I mean, they knew you're here at St. Joe, great school, great academics, great sports. What was it like being recruited?
Well, it was definitely slow at first, but senior season, I had a much better season than I did my junior season.
And what do you attribute that to? Working harder in the off season, just finally coming together?
I definitely got in the weight room more. I also got a footwork trainer, so I got my footwork a lot better. They changed my position, so I had like, it was brand new to tackle. I usually played guard, so they moved me out. I had to go put the work in, and the coaches slowly started. I didn't get my first offer was D3, Carnegie Mellon.
It's a great school, particularly for engineering.
It is late. It was after actually almost the very end of senior season, and then once I started sending out film, started hearing back from more coaches, and took it from there. Went on my visits. Great time.
So Chris, Mr. Loovis tells me that you even have colleges who are interested in you now. What's that like as a freshman?
Sophomore.
Chris
is a sophomore.
Freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's very special. Even though they're not able to talk to me since I'm a sophomore,
Mm-hmm.
I do get them through my dad. So
That's good. So the show's all about the culture of sports. So what's the culture of sports like at St. Joe that sets it off from every other school in America?
The culture of sport, I think,
You brag on your website. You brag about its academic team. They won 4 championships in about a decade. Virtually the same number of National Honor Society members as there are D1 athletes. You tweet about bring home the degree. There's a lot of emphasis on academics here, in addition to just fantastic performance in athletics. It must create a special culture.
Yeah, I think when you look at high school sport in the state, across the country, so there are things that concern me a bit about where it's headed and the direction that it's going. The win at all cost philosophy can get in the way of what is educational. We see teams just in this area bringing athletes in from out of state,
Out of country.
putting them in dorms and putting them with host families. And Mount St. Joe's not doing that. Mount St. Joe has boys from our region, from the west side of Baltimore.
All 3 of you are from Anne Arundel County.
Right, so our region, we're not recruiting overseas or out of state. Our boys are from as south as Annapolis and as west as Mount Airy. That's our region. Those are our boys. We think that they're St. Joe guys. We work with them. We develop them.
What do you consider a St. Joe guy to be? Chris had used the term Mount Man.
Sure.
How would I recognize that person?
Hopefully they would.
Other than wearing purple.
They would probably be wearing purple, but they would be disciplined.
Mhm.
They would be a gentleman, we hope, diligent in their studies, diligent in their athletic pursuits, or whatever it may be. If it's the band, if it's drama, if it's art, if it's computers. You know, we're a high school of over 1,000 boys, and they're not all athletes by any means. And so we feel like we have something for everyone at Mount St. Joe. So whatever that happens to be, we want those boys to find that, to excel in that, and to pursue it.
So Mike, you were heavily recruited. You've done extremely well both athletically and academically. What do you feel the culture of St. Joe is about?
The culture is, in one word, I'd say accepting.
So that's interesting. What do you mean
There's
by
a
that?
club for anything. Like, I know outside of sports, I'm in the investment club, but I'm also in the fishing club, like the newly founded fishing club. Get together, go fishing. We have National Italian Honor Society. If there's something you want to do and you can find like two, three more friends that want to do it with you, you can do it at St. Joe, and you'll be successful.
So Chris, your legacy, your father, your brothers, what do you feel the culture of St. Joe is all about?
I guess brotherhood. Is what I would.
That one word says it all. So we're going to use this last final question since the traffic's so terrible in this area. Y'all live in Anne Arundel County. Is the drive worth it every day to St. Joe?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the drive is worth it.
The drive worth it for you?
I get up extra early just so I can avoid the traffic.
How about you?
Most certainly.
I think that speaks volumes about the culture
We've
here
got
at
some-
Mount St. Joe.
We've got a couple families that come over the Bay Bridge, and some that are,
With the tra-
over an hour. So
With the traffic in this area, that says everything you need to know about the superior culture here at Mount St. Joseph. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
appreciate it, Johnny.